All right. Welcome again, everyone. My name is Shireen Khosropour. I'm a psychology professor at ACC. I'm also director of the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies. And from our center, we bring you a series of workshops that we call Peace and Relationships. We've had 2 already this year. This is the 3rd this academic year, and there'll be 3 more in the spring semester. And at some point, Leila will put the link to our website where you can see the upcoming film series, relationship series, and we have a conflict transformation academy webinar workshop series that's coming up in spring as well. That's open to ACC faculty and staff. So look at all of those. I want to quickly introduce you to Dr. Duana Welch and then ask her to tell you her bio instead of me trying to tell you about her. I think you would like to hear from her directly. Dr. Duana Welch is a former colleague and a friend of ACC Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, and I consider her a friend as well. We are delighted that she has chosen and continues to work with us in this capacity. Welcome, Duana. Take it away.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Khosropour. It's such a pleasure to be back. It's always feels so affirming to be wanted in the ACC community again. You're so special to me personally, and the entire community is important to me. I miss being at Austin Community College. As you know, I taught there for a number of years. I can never remember how many, but it approached 10. And I now live in Eugene, Oregon. And how I got involved with relationship science was that I was a specialist in memory and aging. I got my PhD from the University of Florida. I went to Cal State Fullerton as a professor, and I realized that I just didn't know very much about effective romantic relationships. And it occurred to me that possibly, even though I hadn't studied that, maybe some other people had. And in fact, there were decades and decades of excellent research on this that just weren't being taught. At the time, textbooks were just starting to come out on the subject, but there weren't popular books about it. So anyway, I had made a deal with myself about how I was going to behave going forward, and just see, I really believe in treating your life as its own experiment. Your life is your experiment. And so I really thought that I would just see how these concepts worked in my own life. And if I did things according to the science, what would happen. And as you probably know, science shows us the odds of something happening. They don't, and they're predictive. Like we know from science that 60% of people who smoke will in fact die of smoking related causes, but we don't know which 60% that will be. We can't say, it's going to be you and not you. There are obviously a lot of exceptions. 40% of smokers die of something else. So science, whether it's biological science or whether it's the social sciences, it's not a perfect predictor. It's not a truly specific predictor. It doesn't say, Tina, this will happen to you on Tuesday, but it's the best thing that we've got. It's much, much better than opinion. And so I decided that I was going to use that in my own life. This turned into a client practice all over the world. It turned into 7 books now. I'm re-releasing my first book because human nature has not changed, but dating really has. So I've really updated that first one, and it's coming out on Valentine's Day. I'm so excited. And I'm excited because now I get to talk about my most favorite thing in the world, relationship science, with people like you. I get to come back to my old stomping grounds and discuss that. And so today we have a topic that's really dear to my heart because it's really transformed my life and the life of my clients and my readers, and hopefully your life as well. Will be included in this, and that is effective communication. How do we communicate in a way that helps us to build our relationships instead of tear them down? So I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. And I'm sorry, I'm so far back. If you've seen my other presentations, you're looking more directly at me. I've been having a problem with my neck and back, and I'm having to sit differently now. So, I'm sorry, I'm like 15 feet away, but let me do a screen share. And
And while you're doing that, I'd like to invite our participants, if you're able and comfortable doing so, we would appreciate seeing your lovely faces.
oh yeah, that would be great. And I don't know that I can see your comments. Will someone make a comment, and let's just see if I can see it. Somebody, because I try to answer questions as they come up instead of later. So could somebody just quickly ask me something, and let's see if I can see that.
There were a couple sent already, Duana.
Oh, we're there, so I'm not seeing them. Let me go. Show active speaker video. Is that it? No.
No, go to chat.
Okay. I'm going to stop my share. I think I have to do to.
No, you don't. If you
don't?
hover your mouse in the general area where the rest of the Zoom stuff is, it will eventually bring up that whole menu.
Okay.
It's in the toolbar.
More.
For me, it's usually on the top of my screen, and it doesn't
Okay,
show.
got it.
until I-
Chat.
Yeah.
There we go. Got it. Thank you. It's funny because I Zoom with people all over the world all the time, but not usually in big groups. Okay, so test comment. Okay, let's see what I have missed so far.
Just tests.
Okay, good. All right, so I will try to make sure that I get to these as they come up. If you notice a comment, moderators, and I'm not addressing it, feel free to say there's a comment that I'm not addressing. Okay, so the theme here is, how can you communicate so that your relationships win? And that's a really good question, because most of us are not taught how to do this. Oops. We've all been taught, for example, I remember when I got married at a bridal shower, people were asked to submit their comments about what it takes to have a happy, long-lasting marriage. And everybody pretty much said effective communication, or good communication is the key. And so then I said, okay, what is that? Nobody knew. I mean, we all know that it's the key, but what is it? So this is what we're going to talk about today. This is the overview of what it takes to communicate effectively. You need to be able to share your emotions. You need to be able to ask for what you need. You've got to make a lot of small talk, which may be surprising to some people. I know it was surprising to me. Handle disagreements in a way that builds the relationship instead of tearing it down. And then we're going to talk a little bit about texting, because it's such a major way that people communicate anymore about everything, from whether they're going to pick up, bread on the way home from the store, to whether they're breaking up. So that said, let's dive right in. All right. There's something called emotional literacy. You know what literacy is when it comes to, I'm going to move your pictures so that I'm staring. So I'm looking down at I'm looking more at the camera and not off to the side. I want to make eye contact, even if we can't make eye contact. It's part of effective communication. Okay, so sharing your emotions. There's something called emotional literacy, and it's really foundational to how we communicate. So I want to start off by asking some of you, if you're okay sharing it, what your family and culture taught you, if anything, about emotional literacy. What do you even think it is?
Do we just join in, or?
Sure, if you want, or you can type your comment, either way. It's a small group, so you can really participate any way you want.
I think emotional literacy means being able to notice what emotion you yourself are having, and make accurate guesses about what emotion other people are having.
Yeah, so I can't see who said that. I don't know why it's not giving me your name, but let's see. Dow says,
Shelley is.
Shelley, thank you, Shelley. And
Shelley is.
Dow says, my family taught me not much in emotional literacy. So Shelley, you've got a good point. Sarah Bowman says, being able to communicate non-violently while emotionally charged seems important too. Absolutely. So 2 out of the 3 of you have said really important things about emotional literacy, knowing what your emotions are, being able to make an educated guess about what somebody else's might be, and being able to control yourself while you're emotionally charged. But Dow said the thing that's really true for most people most of the time, which is, I don't know. Most people's cultures and families really don't teach them this. In fact, it's really convenient for our families for us not to know this in a lot of ways. It's convenient for parents to be able to say, this is how you feel, and this is what you're going to do. It's harder to parent in a way that says your feelings are important. Here's a chart of different faces that shows you what the emotions are that you might be feeling. And can you point to the one that shows me how you're feeling right now? In fact, a lot of times, the only time that any of us in westernized cultures, especially the United States, experience a chart of emotional literacy is either when we're in therapy or if we are at a doctor's office and they say, how do you feel? And they show you the different faces and ask you to point to one. And that's just a pain. That's not emotional literacy. That's only pain. So there are 3 steps I want to cover to becoming emotionally literate, which what it means is being aware of your feelings and able to convey those to others in an effective way. That's what emotional literacy is. And it starts with just, do you have feelings that make sense to you that you can label beyond I feel good, I feel bad, I feel happy, I feel sad? Do you have nuanced vocabulary for your feelings? And most of us don't. And that, I have a PhD in psychology and I've been doing this forever. And it's only recently, I would say in the last year, that was actually during pandemic when my son and I were living here together full time, kind of hunkering down because we both had risk factors. So we lived under quarantine for a year and we were just stuck here by ourselves having all these big feelings. And so I printed out a feeling wheel and I just started looking at it every time I passed by the fridge. And I probably actually have it right here on my desk. You know what? I do. I'm going to pick it up. The feeling wheel that I printed out from Gloria Wilcox at the John Gottman Institute. And I'm going to include a link for you that I'm going to ask to be distributed about how you can identify your own feelings. But the reason to identify your own feelings is that the bizarre thing is when we don't label our feelings, they don't go away. In fact, they amplify, but we just don't know what they are. And so they gain control over us, and not in a good way. And when we label our feelings, the ironic thing is they actually dissipate. Having been acknowledged, they move to the background and let us live our lives. And that's from studies show us that this is true. So one of the things that we have to do is just become aware that we're having a feeling. And one of the ways to do that is to have this or the feelings list. I created a much more nuanced list than this. And I created a document that tells you precisely what the steps are. So you don't have to memorize everything from today. I will give you this list and give you the steps. They're very, very simple, but it helps to have them someplace that you can see them. And every time you pass your fridge or wherever you choose to keep it, maybe it's on your phone and you look at it a few times a day. Maybe it's a screenshot and it's your background, whatever form you choose to keep it in. When you look at it, it makes you aware, oh, I have feelings. What am I feeling right now? And that actually will jumpstart this whole process. Then actually put them into words. They can be internal or they can be external. If you don't have someone in your life that you're sharing them with, you can put them into words in a journal. If you have a partner, you can put them into words with your partner. And it's important that you do this every day. I used to work with troubled couples where I would ask them to do what I'm about to teach you to do for a short form of effective communication. What I realized was it's too big an ask. It's too big an ask when people are upset to ask them to do all the steps. They need to have practiced so much by the time they're upset that this is a natural thing for them to do. Kind of like reading used to be something we had to really focus on, like the word them. I've got the phrase in front of me, put them into words, THEM. There was a time when we were little that we had to go T, it makes the T sound. And we would have had to memorize what these letters were, what they sounded like, and then sound out the word. And then we would know what the word meant. It was actually an extremely intensive process. This is why there are people who have PhDs in nothing but reading. Okay, but we're all doing that automatically now. That's where I would like you to get with your feelings. That's where emotional literacy is headed, just like reading literacy, language literacy was headed toward being able to read these sentences fluidly without having to sound out the letters first. So that involves noticing your feelings by having a list on your fridge or someplace you can see them, putting them into words every day. I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. And then sharing them with either a journal or with your partner. Say, I felt, and then put the label of the feeling. I felt blank when name the event happened, and here's what I need. I need blank. If you have a need, sometimes the need is just to express what you felt when it happened. That's all you need. Okay, so what are the pitfalls in sharing emotions? Well, one of the pitfalls is having really a limited emotional vocabulary, which again, I've been in psychology forever. And until about a year ago, I would say mine was extremely limited compared to where it is right now. That's why the emotions list I'm going to give you says things like, I feel like a sex god or goddess, or I feel like I wish everything just went back to how it was before, or I feel really connected to you right now, or I feel really lonely, or I feel isolated, or I feel distant, or I feel pumped. It's got all these different words because there's a lot of nuance to our feelings, and good and bad and happy and sad don't capture that. And your feelings are going to persist if you don't know that you're having them and you don't have specific words to map onto. Another pitfall in sharing emotions is what's called overidentification. It turns out that some of us, those of you who've seen my attachment style webinar will know what I mean when I say anxious attachers. Those of you who haven't, I really encourage you to see that because it affects. Attachment style is foundational to how you interact with people in your life, and especially your children and your romantic partners. So, and most of us are going to have at least one of those. We're going to either have children or romantic partners. So it's really important to know about this. But anxious attachers, which is what I was for a long, long time, over-identify with our emotions, meaning that when we feel something, we think that this is the truth, capital T. That what we're feeling is reality instead of an emotion that might or might not have its roots in reality, in which we could examine further. And when we feel like our emotions are truth and we haven't even really identified what those emotions are or examined them, they shortchange anxious attachers' relationships. They get in the way of effective communication and they cause us to say things that we can't unsay. Okay, so I've got a couple comments here. Let me go to them. Yeah, many people will never go to therapy because they don't want to or can't afford it. Exactly. So you won't. Honestly, I've worked with people who you know, I answer all my emails for free, and so I've done basically volunteer work by email with people who they're not ever going to go to therapy. They can't afford it. And so I've given them these tools, and I can tell you from personal experience and from people I've worked with, if you become more emotionally literate, and the emotions list that I provide on that screen, that list, if you were to use it every day in your journal or with somebody else, it will increase your vocabulary. It'll transform your life. I've seen it happen. And that's why I'm so passionate about having people become more emotionally literate as a first step to effective communication. Because then you don't over-identify with your emotions. You're able to, on a day-over-day basis, realize I'm feeling this way. Is that feeling grounded in reality? Do I need to have a conversation with someone? Do I need to check this out? Do I have evidence for this? And that puts distance between you and the emotions so that you're speaking for your emotions rather than from your emotions. And boy, what a big difference there is. When you over-identify, you're speaking from your emotions, meaning you're letting them run roughshod over you and anyone who's in your path. When you're speaking for your emotions instead of from them, you are just saying, here's how I feel and here's what I need. Here's how I felt, and here's, I need to hear more about that from you. And it really gives your communication and your relationships this whole new life that's much healthier. Another pitfall is a lot of people just don't feel worthy to have the feelings that they have. Many of us were, and I include myself here, were given the message that, you know what? Parental emotions are the ones that count. The adult emotions, your teacher's emotions, the emotions of the bigger people around you, physically larger people around you, they count, yours don't. They don't matter. Well, if you're raised that way, it's not like you magically age out of that. If you feel unworthy as a child, you tend to carry that feeling of unworthiness forward into your adult life, and unfortunately then model it for the other people in your life that maybe you are raising or teaching or in some way mentoring. And so, but it's a major pitfall in sharing emotions. If you don't feel like you are worthy to share, to have emotions, never mind share them, to feel worthy of sharing your emotions, you have to feel like you're worthy of someone of doing something to help meet your needs. And many of us do not feel that way. So this is a first step, is becoming emotionally literate. A lot of people feel foolish. There's the, some people feel like, okay, I'm worthy of having emotions. I would like to understand, label them. I'll do it in my journal, but gosh, you're saying I really need to do this with a partner like every day. That is the epitome of dorkiness. I feel like such a loser doing that. I will tell you, I felt that way too. But I decided that I was going to give it a shot anyway. And now I will say that my partner and I do this every day, and it is one of our favorite times of day. If I don't bring it up, he does. It's just become this really, and I'm really happy. Layla, thank you for sharing the link from the slide. If y'all want to copy that, you'll have all that information. You'll have, here's what to do, and here's the list, a very comprehensive list, which you could then cut and paste into your own document. You can add or subtract and make your own feelings list that you want to use. Okay, and yet another pitfall is waiting to bring stuff up. So much of this has to do with attachment style. Anxious attachers are the ones that tend to over-identify with emotions. To some extent, avoidant attachers do as well. Feeling unworthy is something, if you don't have a secure attachment style, it's very likely that you don't feel like you're worthy to have your needs met. And that's also why people wait to bring stuff up. If you don't feel worthy to have emotions, and you don't feel like other people will meet your needs, or you even have the belief that other people shouldn't, you bought into the cultural lore in westernized cultures, and especially the United States, that my happiness is my business and no one else should meet my needs. It's not their job. By the way, that's BS. You know why I know that's BS? Because there's extensive research on secure people, and they act as if it is in fact their job to treat the people in their life as having needs co-equal to their own, meet those needs, and they feel like it's part of their job to help make the people in their lives happy, and they're the happiest people. If they did that and it resulted in them being the most miserable people, I would agree that that's all codependent. But that's not what the research shows. It's not codependent. Now, I will also say they're pretty careful to involve people in their lives who actually treat their needs as co-equal also. Like, it would be codependent if you're doing this for an abuser, but that they're not doing that. Does that make sense? So, what happens when we wait to bring stuff up is it builds and builds and builds, and then we blow up at people, and that is not helpful. You may have noticed in your own life, it doesn't help. So what helps is to actually notice that we're having a feeling, to communicate feelings on a day-over-day basis, so that when we actually are upset with this person, now we've got so much practice in being upset about other situations and other things, and saying that, I'm going to use a feeling wheel right now. I don't have my list. I have it on my desk. I have this feeling wheel. I am feeling miserable because I reached out and I didn't hear from you for 5 hours. And I understand if you're busy, but I really need to have reassurance from you that as soon as you see that I've reached out, that you will respond. I'm able to say that easily if I need to now to a real life partner, because I've had so many days of practice of saying things like, I felt really excited about working on my book today, and it brought out my creative side, and I felt fascinated by learning some new research, and I felt really amused by some of the things that I laughed at today. And also I was pretty irritated at my sister for doing this. And so when you get used to sharing your emotions about lots and lots of things, and you see that your partner cares about those, it's easier to believe that they're going to care when, or your parents or your friends, that they're going to care when it's personal. Does that make sense? So, practice the life that you want to live is the big message here. Okay. So moving right along, asking for what you need. Asking for what you need is the second thing that I said we were going to do today. There's becoming emotionally literate, and then asking for what you need. And asking for what you need, all of us make what scientists call bids for attention. A bid is any attempt at connection. A bid can be something that's really simple, like, hey, did you hear that the government's now recommending that everyone get a booster shot to protect against COVID? And you just say that, maybe you're in the middle of, both of you are, maybe you're in the room with a partner, a friend, or a family member, and you're reading, and you just say something like that. And it's an interruption to what they're doing because you're just in the same room and you're doing your things. That's a bid. It's an attempt at connection. It's asking for some attention. And what's interesting to me is that a lot of people treat bids for connection as if, why are you asking me for attention? Why should I have to give that to you? A lot of us get told by our intimate others, family, friends, especially partners, that we shouldn't need anybody else. And that is the big lie in Western societies. Research could not be more clear that people need connection, birth to death, first breath to last breath. Have you ever heard this? This is interesting. And I just realized the other day that it's wrong. I've had a number of people tell me this in the context of working with them. We're born alone and we die alone, as if what this means is we need to be completely self-sufficient. You didn't freaking get born alone. Your mother bore you. There were many people in the room and they all loved you. That's bullshit. I'm sorry, I'm swearing, but it's bullshit. You were not born alone. You were cared for, you were loved. Even, you know what? Even if your parents gave you up or set you on a sidewalk for somebody else to pick up, somebody picked you up. I know that because you're alive right now. If you were truly born alone, if you were truly abandoned, first of all, you weren't born alone. There was a woman involved in that picture. It's demeaning to women to even say that. There was a woman involved in that picture, and she chose in most cases to have you. She was not usually forced. She made the decision to do that, even if she got pregnant accidentally, which is true in half of pregnancies. She decided to have you. She may have given you up for adoption, which is, to me, miraculous, because I know what it feels like to have a child. And I know many, many women who have had to or needed to give their babies up, and it just half killed them to do it. And they went through all that and they gave you life anyway. You were not born alone. You will not die alone. Almost nobody does. You will probably be surrounded by love all your life. The question is, are you going to understand that that's the case? Are you going to accept that? And are you going to understand that you asking for attention and other people asking for your attention is not needy, it's normal. It's healthy. Let me tell you what's not healthy. Shutting down other people's bids for attention. Having yours shut down, that's not healthy. Research could not be more clear. So when people make an attempt at connection, and these attempts happen in small moments, it could be just that they squeeze your hand on the way by. It could be that they reach out for a hug. It could be that they say, have a good day, as you're leaving the house. It could be lots and lots of tiny things, small things often. John Gottman's more than 40 years of longitudinal research on couples, happy and not, showed that there are masters and disasters. And the master couples don't have different kinds of problems than the disaster couples. They don't have a different number of problems than disasters. They don't have a different kind of problems than the disasters.
They haven't made it upstairs. I told them, let me know before they go to your room.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear that.
I don't think it was meant for us.
Oh, okay.
I'm
The masters answer yes through their behavior and their language to the biggest attachment question. And it is a question that I think if you really consider it, you will find has been behind almost every fight you've ever had with somebody. Are you there for me? When we're mad that our partner showed up late at the restaurant or didn't listen to us or prioritized something more heavily than they did us, the real thing that we're mad at is they weren't there for us. We wonder whether they will be there for us. It's the big attachment question. And we answer that question, almost nobody ever actually says, are you there for me? They get mad at us. They make bids for our attention. They cry, they get upset. They withdraw emotionally from us. But that's the big question. Are you there for me? And there are three possible responses to this question. There are three possible responses to any of our bids for attention. And masters do one of these three really consistently, and another of these they do kind of rarely, and then the third one they do almost never. And these are learnable. The reason I'm presenting these is not to make you feel like, oh my God, my relationship is hopeless, but to show you that research shows that not only is this how master couples behave, but also that people can be taught to behave this way. It's really pretty simple. And once they start doing it, it transforms their relationships. I want to tell you, it's not going to work if you're with an abuser. Abusers abuse for their own reasons. It has nothing to do with you. You don't deserve it. There's nothing you can do to change it. They are how they are. What you can do is liberate yourself. I don't know that I've done I can't remember if I've done a lot. I know I've done a lot of podcasts on abuse, understanding what pre-abuse indicators are and avoiding abusers, but I don't know that I've done that for ACC yet. But I can tell you, I've got a lot of free information about it on lovesciencemedia.com. I've got a couple of really low cost books about these topics on Amazon. I wanted to make them free. Amazon said no, so they're just very cheap instead of free. To put all the information in one spot. And then I have all the information in my book for single parents and those dating them, because unfortunately, single parents, you are a big target for abusers. I know this myself, having been a single parent, and I know it for sure from the data. So if you're with an abuser, this stuff isn't going to work. I'm sorry. But all the rest of us, we got three possible responses. One of them is we can turn toward our partner when they make a bid for our attention. Our partner says, hey, did you hear this thing in the news today? I'm just wondering. And we say, we stop what we're doing and we say, huh, no, I hadn't heard that. Or we say, yeah, I heard that. And I was really surprised. We have some response that validates their bid for attention and connection. Another possibility is that we turn away, meaning that we don't look up or we don't respond in any way, or, you know, we just don't notice that they made a bid for our attention. So obviously master couples mostly turn toward their partner. That's their default position. Sometimes they turn away in the sense that they just don't notice that their partner was asking for attention. I've noticed that a lot in texting. My clients seem to notice this with their partners, that they'll say something really sweet to their partner and their partner will respond to, you know, the factual part of the text, like, yeah, let's meet at 6 instead of I love you too, which is missing a bit. The question there was not just when we're meeting, but I want your reassurance right now. I want to hear that you love me. And master couples sometimes just they don't get the memo. Everybody misses the bid sometimes. Disasters turn against. Research shows that when these disaster couples are communicating about their needs, they look really calm, but their heart rates are very escalated. Their physiology is showing a lot of signs of stress because they don't trust that their partner is going to be there for them, because their partner hasn't been there for them, because they've been turning against each other. And here's what turning against looks like. I say to you, hey, did you hear this news story? And you go, God, I'm trying to read. Can you leave me alone for 5 minutes? Turning against is dismissive or hostile or angry or belittling. It is not affirming and loving. Master couples understand that when we choose someone, we signed on for a job, a really important one. And that job is I'm going to put my own words around this, but this is the concept. We are retro parenting our partners. We are giving them all the love and attention that they didn't get when they were children. None of us got everything we needed. We are giving love to our partners at the moment that they need it, the way that they need it, to the extent that we, as imperfect humans, are able to do it. But we signed on for that job and we're aware of it. This is how master couples live their lives. If this is not how you are living your life, if you want to be happy, you're going to change that. It's not hard to do. It requires noticing that your partner has made a bid and asking yourself, what do they need? And if you don't know, say, what do you need? Now, let's say you're the person who you'd love to be part of a master couple. You've made bids, you've gotten shut down quite a lot. You've gotten to the point where you find I'll tell you, you're in one of the disaster couples if you find yourself editing. If you find yourself thinking, I shouldn't say that. Either you have such an anxious attachment style that you haven't ever given it a chance to make a bid, or you've given it a shot quite a few times and you keep getting shot down instead. I would like you to show them this video, your partner this video, watch it together, or have them watch it on their own. And then I want you to start saying, this is a bid. Help them notice. Don't expect this to magically improve. Help them notice that you're asking the attachment question. Are you there for me? This is a bid. By the way, people ask me all the time, do I do these things myself? And I do. I'm an imperfect person who adores an imperfect person, and we do this with each other because you have choices, and the choices are do things differently and in a more healthy way, or don't be happy, or maybe don't even be together. I want choice A. So I do apply the science to my life because it's helpful. What I love about social science? Look, I readily acknowledge that biology and chemistry are super important sciences. Physics is absolutely important. We don't have bridges. We don't have doctors. We don't have so many things without those fields. Here's the thing though, I can't instantly apply those sciences to my life. I can't listen to a lecture and go, I'm going to improve my life right now by doing that, almost ever. But you can with social science. You can with psychology. And that's what I love about it. And it's definitely improved my life. I hope that you will apply it and improve your own as well. Okay, so I got asked on a podcast recently. It was kind of a Q&A thing. I'd been on this woman's podcast a couple times before. So Shireen says, can you say a little bit more about editing? How is it different from being kind or considerate? Oh, great. So editing means that you are withholding like a comment like, hey, look at that bird out the window, because you think your partner won't care. You've decided that they're going to be hostile if you say that. It's different from being kind and considerate in the sense that if your partner is on deadline and they've got a presentation to do in 1 hour, maybe don't say the thing about the bird. Maybe that's not the right time. But that's not most of the time, is it? None of us are. I mean, the president of the United States is happily married. I assure you, he's very busy with important tasks much of the time. But you don't get a relationship like the one they appear to have without allowing your partner to interrupt you and ask for things. You don't get that. So that's the difference. The other, there will be a recording of this presentation. And I'm glad you want one. How is this different from being kind and considerate? It's also different in the sense that making a bid is not being critical of your partner. And we're going to go into the difference between criticism and complaint as part of our session today. But making a bid means just in the moment, making a connection with your partner, saying, hey, I'm going to go walking later. You want to go? And your partner saying, oh, I can't, I've got that thing, which is still responding positively. It's still turning toward you. They can't, but they're not being dismissive of you, as opposed to acting like you never said it or saying, I hate going on walks. Why do you keep asking? Do you see the difference? Okay. So I got asked on this podcast as part of this series of questions. The podcaster, I'd been on the show a couple times, and so she said, next time it's going to be Q&A. And she said, so I've got a question for you. Somebody has written to me and said, my wife wants me to make small talk, and I don't want to do it. I think small talk is useless. And so do I have to? Which I thought was really funny. Do I have to? And here's my answer. No, you only have to do this if you want to stay married. Only if you want the relationship to survive. That is the only circumstance under which you need to make small talk. And here's why. Master couples and couples who even survive, that is the couples who hang on by their fingernails, they seem to have the motto, small things often. They understand that a life is made of small moments, of turning to each other in the small moments. Life is not made of vacations to Hawaii, buying cars, and going to kids' college graduations. Those are big things, but there were thousands and thousands and thousands of tiny moments that, strangely enough, were equivalently important. Think about a time that someone really disappointed you. I bet some of those times it was a really small moment that showed you where you stood with them, and you found out the answer was not where you thought, not where you wanted to. The little things are the big things. Little connections are big. Knowing that you can tell your partner the inane thing that happened today that nobody else would even want to hear, and maybe your partner wouldn't be dying to hear, but they want to because it's you. Notice, I'm getting back to this concept. When you choose a partner and they choose you, you just said, I'm going to do a job, and the job I'm going to do is your needs are going to be co-equal with mine, and I'm going to treat you like you're important in the small moments. If right now you're saying, wow, I signed on, I didn't think I was signing on for that. Guess what? You were. I don't care how you construed it. If you want your relationship to last, you did. You signed on for that job. And so did they. And if you're not doing the job, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Small talk is big talk. Daily sharing is an absolute must. Happy couples. So this is a stat that gets misquoted a lot. The statistic is that there's a ratio of positives to negatives in relationships that are happy. That's the reality. And this is, again, research from the Gottman Institute. And they found that the ratio of positive to negative communications in happy relationships, the master couples, is 20 to 1. So if you thought of your relationship as a bank, in a regular bank, if you put $1 in, the amount of dollars you can take out before you're broke is 1 to 1. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. And a lot of us are actually taught that. I've had people say, I've seen a book that says, if you have as many positives as negatives in your relationship, that's a successful relationship. No, that is guaranteed divorce. Guaranteed. I mean, that's not a question. The data from 40 years are in on this one. It's not 1-to-1. The ratio to barely hang on, and this is what gets misquoted in the news. They say the ratio of positives to negatives to be happy is 5-to-1. No, 5-to-1 is to barely survive. You go below 5-to-1 and your relationship will result in divorce in the next 4 years. So the first act, if you're thinking, oh, I'm thinking my relationship is in trouble, the first act to effective communication actually isn't to learn how to complain instead of criticize or any of that. It's to add a lot of positives to your relationship. Start noticing what you like and praising it. When your partner makes a bid for attention, reward that bid for attention by giving them your attention in a kind and caring way. When they reach for your hand, hold it. When they it can be humiliating to have your bid for attention rejected. I was no great fan of our recent past president, but there was a video that was circulating where he reached for his wife's hand and she swatted it away. And that video must have been seen by nearly everyone in the world. Even though I didn't like him, I felt a little bit sorry for him, because that's a bid for attention that's turning against. It's like, get away from me. Okay. Master couples, they grab onto those bids and they hold your hand for longer than you needed them to. I am there for you. And they do it 20 times more often than they do the thing where they just drop your hand right away or don't even hold it. They act like it didn't happen. 20 times more often than that. So in the bank of love, what we're aiming for is, for every $20 we deposit, we can only take one out. Because the idea here is all of us will eventually have hard times. And when they happen, we want our bank account to be super full. We want it to be brimming. So one reason I've asked you to notice daily moments with your partner and reward those moments, and learn how to say, this is a bid. If your partner doesn't naturally do this, work with them on them being okay with your bids. And also watch the video on attachment style, because a lot of people who are turning against have an avoidant attachment style. And they don't understand that their relationship is going to go away if they don't understand how high the stakes are. You know, I've heard success in relationships being referred to as just pure chance. It's not true. You have a lot of control over what happens in your relationships. And I've heard it referred to as a numbers game, and that also isn't true. It's a knowledge game. Most people just don't have this knowledge base. And when people do, they're empowered to try. Again, your life is your own experiment. Let's say that somebody out there is watching today or years from now, even, because this video will be out there for a long time, I hope. And they're thinking, you know, I just don't know if I can do this. Try it, see if it works. It's not going to kill you to try. It's your life's your own experiment. If it crashes and burns, maybe just commit to doing it for a couple of weeks and just see if your life is a little bit better as a result. Maybe base what you do next on those results. But practicing when there's no conflict, building your emotional literacy, bringing things up with your partner, sharing every day, treating your partner's small moments as big moments. If you practice when there's no conflict, it will grease the wheels when there is conflict. You will have this huge bank account that is in the black. And you will be able to make withdrawals and still have your relationship be really happy. You won't be questioning the whole thing when it happens. Okay, so now we're getting the fourth part of the 5 things I told you we were going to talk about, which is handling disagreements. I know when I started learning this, I thought, oh, good, I can do all this and then I just won't have conflict. And boy, was I disappointed to learn that conflict is inevitable. Conflict is inevitable. And the reason why is because cloning is not FDA approved. We can't marry or partner with a clone of ourselves. we inevitably wind up with someone who has a lot in common. That's why people choose each other, actually, is their similarities, not their differences. Again, really, really and truly, I don't even know how many studies prove that point. We usually wind up with somebody pretty similar to ourselves, but not exactly the same. And people tend to argue over their disagreements, their areas of difference. John and Julie Schwartz-Gottman wrote a book where they had a list of the things that couples commonly have conflict over. And in future editions of that book, subsequent editions, they removed the list, but I had an old edition, so I had the list. The reason they removed the list is it stressed people out to see how many things people argue about, and they weren't trying to stress people out or make them feel hopeless. The point they were trying to make is that there's one word that starts every single conflict topic, and that word is differences. People do not argue over things they're the same on. They argue over areas of difference. Notice I didn't say wrong. Conflict is inevitable, but being wrong is, I mean, all humans err. We all are wrong some of the time, but conflict would happen even if you were right 100% of the time, because you'll have differences. You can need a lot of social contact, and your partner can need mostly time just with you, and you can both be right, but you're still going to argue about it because your needs aren't exactly in sync. Most chronic differences that people have is because the differences are based on a fundamental difference in personality or values, and it's not going to go away. So another thing I thought that was wrong, and I'm so glad that I was wrong about this. I thought that if I had a problem in my relationship and it never went away, that the relationship was wrong and it meant that it couldn't succeed. Research shows that in unhappy couples, the disaster couples, if you looked at all their differences and disagreements, the things that they routinely disagree about, 2/3 of their differences are never, ever going to get resolved. Now that's the disaster couples. 2/3 of their differences are never, ever going away. That doesn't surprise me. What shocked me was when you look at the master couples, if you have them list out everything they ever have disagreements about, and then you narrow it down to how many of these disagreements will be there, whether they're together 5 years or 50 years. These are going to be perpetual conflicts, not solvable. It's 2/3. Shocking. The distinction between whether couples are happy or masters or disasters isn't whether they have differences. They all do. And it's not whether they're going to solve those differences. They don't. You're going to have a lot of differences that there's no need to solve them. You don't need to solve who's right about whether one of you is introverted and the other of you is extroverted. You don't need to solve that difference. You're not going to. I'm sorry, you can probably hear my cat. She's decided to participate in the lecture today. Here she is. Everybody, this is Holly. Hi. She's going to sit in my lap. There you go, Holly. Because she's making a bid for my attention, and I am affirming that bid. Teachable moment. Okay, so that's the 2/3 rule. 2/3 of your conflicts are never going away, and you don't have to solve all of them. What you do have to do is communicate about these differences in a respectful, kind way that shows that you put your love for your person ahead of the perpetual nature of this discrepancy. So I started by saying that I'm having problems with my neck and my back, which is why I'm, basically in outer space today, and you have to use a microscope to see me. Normally I sit really close, but I can't do that unless I want to make my back and my neck a lot worse right now. This back and neck issue is kind of a perpetual issue for me. I don't feel bad all the time, but there are specific times in my life where it really crops up, and then I have to do a lot of things differently, and then it'll go away for a while. Your perpetual issue with your partner, whether it's your partner now, a partner in the future, if you change partners, you just get a different set of issues. That's what's going to happen. John Gottman says that the best, I've got access to a bunch of his videos for therapists. I'm not a therapist, but I got access to the videos anyway, because there's no rule against me learning all that. So, yeah, and that's the truth. You don't need to be a practitioner in order to learn everything you can and apply it to your own life. And he said if he was asked to give the most important relationship advice he could give, he would say, pick problems you can tolerate because they're going to be there forever. That's his advice. Pick problems you can tolerate. Don't choose a partner with problems that you think, you know what, if this problem doesn't get better, I'm out. Don't choose that because the odds are you're going to be out. Happy master couples choose a partner where the problems are livable, but disaster couples, they often also choose a partner where the problems are livable. They then take the problems they have, they enlarge on them, and they make them unlivable. And here's how. This is why I told you about my bad back. They wake up, they notice their back is bad, and they hit it with a sledgehammer. Master couples wake up, they notice they've got a bad back, and they go, oh, can I rub some liniment on that for you? How about a heating pad? What can I do for you? They help to mitigate the problem. They don't get rid of it. Look, my back's probably always going to be about like it is, unless it gets even worse. But I do things where it doesn't ruin my life. Do you get the analogy? Master couples do things where they don't allow this problem to ruin their life. They don't get rid of it because you can't. You know, I used to shut the door and make my cat wait outside. And you know what she did? She beat on the door and screamed. She's very loud. Wouldn't it be easier if this perpetual problem that when I am on a podcast or a webinar, she will want my attention because I'm talking and she thinks that means I want to talk to her? Wouldn't it be easier if I just met her need? She's not going to be any different. But wouldn't it be easier if I just did what the situation called for? If you think about your problems this way, you're thinking about your problems the way a master couple thinks about their problems. Problem's always going to be there. We're going to love each other anyway. How about that? We're going to be happy anyway. It's both and. We can have problems and we can thrive. Okay, so how do they do that though? It's one thing to say, thrive. It's another thing to say how you do it. They do it in a really specific way. First of all, one of them is the relationship mechanic. The relationship mechanic is my term. I made this term up. It's the term for the person who takes it on as their job to notice that there are issues and to bring them up. The name for this person is not nag or pain in the butt. It's an important job. The reason that I gave this job an important title, because we all need mechanics in our lives. The reason I gave this job an important, necessary, this person is necessary, is because it is necessary. Couples where both people kind of act like there's a problem over there, but I can't see you, I can't hear you, la, 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 la. They stop having sex. They stop interacting. They wind up with a dead relationship, even if technically they're still together. Someone has to do this job. In happy couples that are heterosexual, it's almost always the woman, more than 8 out of 10 times. In same-sex couples, obviously, it's a woman if it's a lesbian couple, and it's a man if it's a gay couple. But in most relationships that are heterosexual, it's a woman. And, I don't know if you've ever taken your car to a bad mechanic, but you want to be a good mechanic. If this is your job, you want to be a good mechanic. And if it's not your job, if somebody else actually has taken on the job in your relationship, you want to hope that person's a good mechanic. I'm not saying that if you're not already the mechanic, you have to take the job on, but whoever does it needs to be good at it. So I'm going to empower you to be a good mechanic right now. And if you have a bad mechanic, I'm going to empower you to maybe help them to be a little bit better at their job, because it's an important job. We want to be good at it. First of all, you need to avoid the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. That's John Gottman's words for people who he knows from many. Yeah, we need more men to take on that emotional labor. You know, really, it doesn't matter. I mean, I guess I could agree with you, but as long as you have a partner who is responsive to the emotional labor, it doesn't matter who does it. There are 2 sides to this emotional labor: the person who brings it up and the person who responds to it. So if you are a good mechanic and you're with, in this case, a male partner who ignores your excellent mechanic skills, then they're not doing their part of the emotional labor. Everybody's got emotional labor to do, whether or not they're the mechanic. So the 4 horsemen, meaning that Gottman found that if you do these things, your marriage is going to end unless you undo them, unless you change the dynamic. I call it a bad tennis game. He calls it the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. It's criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. And it goes in that order. The reason I call it the bad tennis game is the mechanic serves by criticizing. You know what your problem is? That's a criticism. The recipient defends. Hey, but I filled the car with gas just yesterday. No. The mechanic then shows contempt, scoffing, rolling their eyes, saying something belittling. And ultimately, if that bad tennis game happens often enough, or if the recipient has an avoidance style, in that case, they might do it right off the bat, then there's stonewalling, looking off into the middle distance, kind of the 30-yard stare, crossing their arms, and just waiting for you to stop talking. I will tell you, by the time a relationship reaches the point where stonewalling is the habitual way that one or both partners deal with interactions, the couple is so lonely that affairs and divorce and separation are the likely outcomes. Most of the time, it's not the case that an affair caused the end of a relationship. It is often the case, and the death throes of a relationship created the conditions for an affair, especially when a woman is the one that has the affair. There's an old country song. I grew up listening to country music, and I remember we would be getting ready for church, and this song would come on called Drop. I can't even make this up. Drop kick me, Jesus, through the goalpost of life. Well, here's another one that I remember from my childhood. Lonely women make good lovers. Men who have affairs tend to do it regardless of their emotional status with their partner. Women tend to do it when they're lonely. And women tend to be very lonely when stonewalling becomes a fixture in a relationship. So what do you do instead? My cat's back. Come here. No, don't stand there looking at me and meowing. Come here. She's become part of many of my podcasts now. Come here. Okay. Well, you need to know the antidotes to each of the 4 horsemen. First of all, if you're the mechanic, you're the one who starts things off, usually. You're the one who criticizes. Learn to complain instead. If you complain rather than criticizing, you will automatically be using something called soft startup. Gottman's research found that 100% of the time, this blows me away, by the way, in the social sciences, we're happy if we get like, oh, we know this happens 10% of the time, or we know that this happens 20% of the time. To get 100% is amazing. You almost never encounter those statistics. Gottman found in 40 years that 100% of the time, disagreements ended on the same note they started on, which means if you're a good mechanic and you want to end with progress being made and everybody being friends, that you start with a really friendly tone of voice and you start with a complaint instead of a criticism. A criticism has the concept of, you know what your problem is. That's the concept in a criticism. You always, you never, you know what your problem is. It doesn't have to use those words. It could use I feel language. I feel like you're a jerk is still a criticism. I have had people try to do that. So criticism, if you notice that you are tempted to, or you actually are focusing on what this person did that was wrong, and that is human nature. And most of us are raised doing that. So we've had poor modeling in addition. Then you're about to criticize someone if you're focusing on what they did wrong. On the other hand, if you focus on your feelings, not their failings, you will wind up with a complaint. And here's what also fascinates me about this research. Happy couples complain more than anyone. I assumed that all that banking, the 20-to-1 ratio meant that they just didn't complain. No, it means that they give each other so many positives, just so many, that they can afford to complain more too. They have what Gottman describes as marital poop detectors, meaning when they discover that the communication, especially if they're being, if their partner has treated them in a way that doesn't move the relationship forward, that moves it backwards, they complain right away. They don't save it for later, and they don't just let it slide. They don't let it build. Healthy communication skill is you bring this up as soon as you can, like not in dinner in front of your friends, okay? If your partner said something really rude or something really personal that you think, oh, that's really personal, I don't want that shared. You don't say it at dinner in front of your friends, you wait till later, but you say it at the first practical moment and you focus on your feelings. So this is the formula I gave you earlier. I felt blank when blank event happened and I need blank. If you married someone or partner with someone, or in the future marry or partner with someone who is not a sociopath, most people in the United States choose partners for love, which means that they're your friend, which means they're on your side, which means that if you just give them a chance to be on your side, they will be, but you have to not trigger their defenses. When you say something like, I felt really awkward when you mentioned the thing about me and my kid at dinner in front of our friends, and I just really wonder if we can agree that that doesn't get brought up in front of other people. You know, you might not have realized that. Your partner's gonna be able to hear that. They're gonna be able to hear it, because you're not saying you're a horrible person or you're so insensitive or you have no social intelligence or any of the things you might have been thinking. You're not saying that. You're saying, I need this. Here's how I feel and here's what I need. A good partner who's on your team wants to give it to you. You know, I'm gonna speak right now to heterosexual women, because it's mainly in heterosexual relationships that women are the mechanics. All the men out there, almost every man out there that you're going to meet. And this is gay men too. I'm speaking of heterosexual women and gay men. Anybody who partners with men. They were all raised by women and they were terrified of disappointing her. And a lot of non-secure men, the reason they're non-secure is they're terrified of disappointing you. When you complain, you give this person an opportunity to make you happy. That's what he wants. He wants to make you happy, but he cannot do it if you've told him right out the gate, you're a failure. You're a bad person. You're a disappointment to me. That just brings up all his stuff from the past. That's why he's defensive. Okay, let's say that, and that's why not to criticize, is that any person is going to do the emotional equivalent of this. They're going to defend themselves. You're not going to move the ball down the field toward becoming closer. You're going to move poles apart because this person isn't going to agree with you. They're not going to say, you know, I am kind of a jerk. they're going to defend themselves, and you're going to get the opposite of what you want. So let's say that you are the recipient of this, and your emotional labor is, oh, I'm with the mechanic, and the mechanic unfortunately needs a little tune up, a little bit better skills. The mechanic has just said to me, you know what your problem is? You always say really insensitive things when we're in front of our friends. Notice that that is a very different message than the complaint. And let's say you've received that message. Your natural inclination, and I don't blame you at all, is to defend yourself and say, I don't always do that. I mean, okay, sometimes I kind of forget, but I don't always do that. You know, I said that you're a really good mom. I said good things about you. I don't see what your problem is with what I said. You're just too sensitive. See where this is going? It's not a good place. Okay. The way to help your mechanic see the path back to kind, respectful, helpful, clear communication is, I'm really sorry that I've hurt you in some way. Can we do a do-over? Because I'm on your side. Remind this person that your answer to the attachment question is, I'm there for you. That's what the mechanic is nearly always really upset about. You didn't pay attention to something that was important to me, which means you're not there for me. So give this person the feedback. I am there for you. I'm on your side. Something's gone wrong here. Can we talk about it a little differently? Because I am on your side. That phrase can really save your bacon. Or if you're vegan, it can save your corn. Okay, contempt. So the bad tennis game, you know, the first person, the mechanic said, you know, you're always so insensitive to my needs in front of our friends. And you defensively said, no, I'm not. I said what a great mom you were before I said anything else. And then the mechanic rolls eyes. There's a reason your mom said, don't you dare roll your eyes at me. And that reason is, it's a huge predictor of divorce. She didn't know that. She just knew it was contemptuous, and she didn't like that. And good for her for saying something about it, not tolerating that, because nobody should tolerate this. If you catch yourself being contemptuous, stop. Stop, not only because it's unhelpful, but because it's not in your best interest. Not only because it hurts the other person, but it's not in you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're not going to get what you want here if you show contempt. Rein it in. If you do an inward eye roll, tell yourself, okay, I need to consider what's really going on here. Because even if you do it inwardly, if you feel contemptuously about your partner, what that means is you're thinking, I'm better than you. That's what contempt is, by the way. It's showing the other person, I think I'm better than you. I mean, you know, adults don't have to stick around for that. That's a big part of the reason these relationships don't last. So if you notice that you are employing contempt, practice respect outwardly and inwardly. Tell yourself, the phrase to use is, I'm not better than they are. They are just as good a person as I am. If you don't really believe that, you might not be with the right person. Maybe you are better than they are, in which case you may have a really big decision to make. But in my opinion, it demeans both people when one person behaves contemptuously. Because I had someone hire me recently for the following reason. They realized that their partner was bringing out their worst, and that they didn't like who they themselves were in this relationship. My experience is that by the time contempt becomes a routine part of a relationship, my clients don't like themselves very much when they do that. So it's good spiritual practice and emotional practice and it's good practice to have a happy relationship. If you are the recipient of contempt and criticism, or you've noticed that you just have a natural tendency to shut down when your partner brings up a problem, I am betting that you don't understand how this comes across to your partner. And I'm betting that because I taught this stuff for many, many years in college classrooms, and I asked my students how many of them noticed that they stonewalled and what they were thinking when they did it. And then I asked my students who were the recipients of stonewalling how they felt when it happened. And boy, were these were different universes. So Gottman didn't actually say this anywhere that I've ever found, but my students sure did over a long period of time. The stonewaller thinks, I'm just going to cross my arms metaphorically or really and stare off into the middle of distance and wait for my partner to stop talking, because when I do that, I am preventing the argument from escalating. The recipient of the stonewalling thinks, wow, you are so disrespectful. You are so far from being on my side and being there for me that what I'm saying doesn't even get a response from you. Now, when I put it that way, can you see why these relationships end? They end because stonewalling, the message is, I am not on your side. You do not merit a response. Stonewalling is deadly. It is the worst of the worst when it comes to the survival of a relationship. So if you're a stonewaller, if you sometimes do this, and by the way, you can learn if you're feeling really bad about yourself or your partner right now, you can learn to do differently. People routinely do. Yeah, we have 11 minutes left. We will get done in 11 minutes. Your partner, and you can learn to do this differently. Research, Gottman didn't just find out what makes couples fail. He found out that people who are disaster couples, they can learn to simply tweak their behavior and their emotions change. We all know that we act how we feel, but we also feel how we act. That's the part most people don't know. Layla says, would you agree that asking for space to cool down is different from stonewalling? Absolutely. The take a break is what to do instead. And I want to give you the specific directions on how to take a break. People who stonewall, another reason they do it is because their heart rate hits 100 beats per minute and they feel flooded and they feel unable to process any further information. It's actually a physiological thing. I think it's fascinating that we know the exact heart rate where this happens, and it is 100 beats per minute. I wear a Fitbit and it tells me my beats per minute. One of the interesting things that's different between people with male bodies versus female bodies is that people with male bodies, they tend to get to 100 beats per minute way sooner in an argument, which is why most of the stonewallers are male. It's not that common for people with female bodies to ever reach 100 beats per minute during an argument. In fact, we kind of enjoy it sometimes. Like we could stay up all night and just process the argument. Cool. Men often don't feel that way about it. So if you notice that you're feeling like, oh, I am about to literally or metaphorically check out and just be silent for the rest of this and just wait for my partner to get done speaking, if that's you, regardless of whether you're male or female, if that's you, the thing to do is to say, I really want to hear what you have to say and I want to work through this. Say it even if you don't really want to, okay? Because what I want you to translate inwardly is, I don't want my relationship to end. I really want to hear what you have to say. I'm not able to do it right now. My heart rate is really skyrocketing and I can't focus on what you're saying. Can we take a break for 20 minutes and come back to this? Gottman found that 20 minutes was long enough. The key here is during the 20 minutes, do something that really takes your mind off it. Now, I am really good at doing something and not getting distracted from why I'm pissed. I can take a walk and completely focus on why I'm pissed. The goal of the 20-minute break is to disconnect from your anger and to let your heart rate return to a happy level. So maybe watch a comedy or listen to a podcast, something that takes enough, it absorbs enough of your attention. Here's what not to do. I found out from my students that a lot of women during these breaks, what they were doing was calling their best friend and saying why the schmuck they were involved with was wrong. That is not what to do during this. That's going to make it worse. So distract yourself during those 20 minutes and then come back and practice these relationship skills. And your relationship will get better, unless you're with an abuser. Then it won't. And you're going to need to make a plan to safely get away from them at a time that works for you. And nobody else should be telling you what time that is. Okay. So how do we communicate effectively? Well, you need to choose your method. And I've got text in a question mark because most people text important information now. Why do you think that is? Can I have any responses? Can anybody of you type why you think people are now relying on texting to process important information? I had a client whose daughter texted her that she didn't want to ever speak to her again. Like she broke up with her mom in a text message and then didn't speak to her again. Why do people do this? Why do they text stuff other than I'm at the third seat over from the bar? To avoid immediate confrontation and likely negative response. Yeah, I think Dow's right about that. Yep. And Shreen says it's an opportunity to monologue, being heard without it. Yep, that's a good reason too. It's easier to avoid conflict, says Evelyn. Yep, it is. Dow says lack of patience. These are all really important reasons that I agree with you. I think these are reasons why people do it. Any other reasons? Yeah, Mario, I really love this contribution. It removes tone of voice and visual cues like rolling of eyes, etc. And Shreen says, yeah, you don't show vulnerability this way. Exactly. There's not emotional vulnerability. I think these are all reasons that people do it, and they're valid reasons in a sense. They also wreck intimate relationships. Intimate relationships require us to process our and the other person's emotions. Intimate relationships require us to be vulnerable and brave. Intimate relationships require us to be patient. Intimate relationships require us to have an exchange rather than a monologue. Intimate relationships require conflict. Intimate relationships require that we deal with negative responses. Everything we're trying to avoid in a text is a requirement of a genuinely intimate relationship. Relationships that avoid these things become non-relationships, either because people are still breathing in and out and getting up and going to bed every day in the same house, but they have no emotional connection anymore, or because people actually leave the relationship. These relationships don't survive in any form that we would call a relationship. Texting, in my opinion, I have not read any science on this. This is just my opinion. In my opinion, it is a form of stonewalling. We need vulnerability. What I know for sure, this is not my opinion, that we need bravery and patience and kindness and vulnerability and an opportunity for the other person to respond and conflict. Not my opinion. Those are all requirements of intimacy. We can't get cues, as Mario pointed out, we can't get cues like body language, tone of voice, instant feedback, clearing up misunderstandings in text. We can't do that. I know a lot of people see that as an actual benefit of texting and a reason to do texting. And you know, I will readily acknowledge there are many people in our lives where they're just not that important to us. We don't need to process conflict with everybody. We don't need genuine intimacy with everybody, but I'm talking about your most cherished relationships, relationships with family, relationships with cherished friends, relationships with romantic partners. They deserve the respect that comes with a voice conversation. These are the people who deserve it. When we don't treat these relationships with that respect, we get failure in those relationships. I've seen texting end a lot of relationships. I think about my client who the daughter just broke up with her over a text message. It's not just that that's hurtful and disrespectful. It's that the daughter blocked the mom and refused to deal with her anymore. And mom doesn't have any opportunity to make it right. This, in all odds, would not have happened before there was texting. I love my cell phone, and if you take it away from me, I'm going to die like immediately. That moment, not several moments later. I'd rather you took my arm. This is serious. I would just use my nose and use voice speech to text. Texting has its place, but I've seen it ruin a lot of new dating relationships. I've seen a lot of people who might have wound up being couples not become anything at all. I've seen a lot of couples break up. I've seen a lot of families that their relationships were permanently worse because of this. I would strongly encourage you, again, I don't have the data to prove that texting is destroying relationships. I just have a lot of observation. I know what relationships require. I know that texting doesn't deliver it. I'm therefore making a logical assumption that when you're dealing with somebody who truly deserves, somebody who in your inner circle, they deserve to have a voice. They deserve to be able to respond. Then we need to have greater odds of that relationship lasting and not text. So if you want to contact me for any reason, really, here's the way to do it. My email address is duana@lovesciencemedia.com. And you can find a lot of free content at lovesciencemedia.com. And my site where you can see all my books and get free content is at lovefactually.co. And you can pretty much find me. I've been doing this for a long time now, so you can pretty much find me everywhere. And Layla sent me a direct message that I can't see. Oh, wait. Oh, 1 minute. Yep, I'm done. So thank you. I really appreciate that you were here today.
Thank you, Duana. Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, cool. Your presentations always come to an end before we're really ready for them to come to an end. Not because you don't plan it well, you always plan it just perfectly, but it's always nice to keep hearing from you. Thank you so much. I personally learned a lot. I'm going to send the link when Layla makes it available to some people I know and encourage people to watch and kind of learn or relearn some stuff that we know. Even if we know these things, it's really useful to be reminded and practice. I particularly like your list and the steps for becoming more emotionally literate. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I know we're all really tired of meeting on Zoom, but it also makes it available for us easier to have people like Duana with us from a long distance, and you all to join us from your bedrooms or offices. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.